Good evening, Americans. This is your favorite alien and Bubba here on the evening of Tuesday, March 30th, 2021. Hooray, Mr. Hinckley! 2021. And we're sitting in this evening for Paul Harvey. Stand by for commentary. Well, Americans, in 1960, if Paul Harvey were alive today, he would say that he did an interesting program, and he called it the testing time. And he was looking at the world as it stood in 1960, and where you stood then. And Mr. Harvey, if you're up there with you know who, like you said you were the other day in the letter, you would know that here we are 61 years later, and the testing time has gotten worse. And let me do this for you 61 years later. If Mr. Harvey was here today, he would say, 1. Your society has disintegrated since 1960. We don't have no more cold wars to fight or hot wars to fight. We have social wars to fight. And nobody's winning. We have nationalism wars to fight, and nobody's winning. We have factions to fight, and all the factions are losing. We have pigmentation issues to fight, and nobody's winning. And we have ourselves to get straight, and we're as crooked as we were back in 1960. On the war front, the Soviet Union has been dissolved, and now we got rogue states all over the place. China has emerged as the second most powerful economic country in the world, but it's blowing the candles at both ends, and it doesn't see that. With the massive changes that China has done since 1976, with all the things between them, the United States, and all the rest of the European countries and so-called advanced countries, you have tilted the Earth's axis and created the mass of the Earth to tilt. Therefore, the true North Pole and the South Pole are disengaging from where they should be in their axis, causing the Earth to be slightly off tilter, and soon a lot of countries, including the United States, will be a wasteland. The people have not learned a thing since 1960 here in America. We've got more Tom, Dick, and Harrys that's come in since 1960. And what do we have? Well, we got a trial in Minneapolis, Minnesota, of a police officer who killed an African American. And what's that new? We were doing that in 1960. But this time, you have social media that we didn't have in 1960. People can pull out their phones, and before you know it, you're number one on the hit list. Poor Mr. Chauvin, he's number one on the hit list. So on this trial, what's that going to prove? Well, a lot of people want to prove him guilty. In a sense he is, but in a sense he's not. Mr. Harvey would agree with me on this. In a sense he is, and in a sense he's not. Who's guilty? Well, Chauvin is, for acting the way he did. The police officers around him are for not taking him off of Mr. Floyd. Mr. Floyd is for being Mr. Floyd, and the African Americans are for saying that, hey, everybody's picking on us, but you had a hand in it. Otherwise, you wouldn't have this problem. Mr. Floyd was doing illegal things with narcotics. That is true. The police went overboard. That is true. The African Americans have gone overboard about this without knowing what the problem is. And they are part of the problem. The city of Minneapolis went overboard with the amount of money they gave the family. Is the family owed reparations? Well, the police officers, along with Mr. Chauvin, disgraced the police department. Yes. So the city did owe him something. But money is not the issue here. They should have paid him some money, not $27 million. And they should have also gone to the community and says, we got to get together and straighten this out, both you and us, without having perception issues, without having all this other issues. And then the testing time that's happening today, Mr. Harvey, if you were here today, you would say that the testing time is how the Americans are holding and trying to grip on these issues. The Chauvin trial of Mr. Floyd's death. It's not just that he's guilty. It's what's going to happen when the verdict comes in. What's going to happen afterwards. And it's not just, he's guilty and the blacks, you go back to doing what you're doing. No, African Americans, you got to change. And the police department has to change. And the city has to change. And all the other pigmentations, white, yellow, red, whatever you are, have to change. The Asians have to change. The Latins have to change. You got to get rid of all those. You got to give up those, being African American, being Asian, being Latin, being white. Although white, I don't understand white. It's a Caucasian. It's a mixture. There's no white there. There's no black there. You ever seen pure black and pure white? Hey. Unless you're Muhammad Ali referring to Joe Frazier as the gorilla. Yeah. Remember that? And you guys didn't see the irony in this. This is two African Americans. Muhammad Ali denigrating Joe Frazier, and he did that a lot. And I didn't see no African American going, oh, yeah. What did he call him? The gorilla, and then the rumble in the jungle. Yeah. But that was Motormouth. And in Panama, we used to say Mohong, which means something else, not Mohammed. Mohong. You guys who know Spanish know what that means. Yeah. Mohong. And that's the way we referred to Muhammad Ali. Disrespectful? Yes. Because Muhammad Ali was always disrespectful. And this is what you Americans, and especially African Americans, have to know. This is a testing time that you got. Mr. Harvey would say, we have to eliminate all these problems we have here, and this is our biggest test time that we've ever had since 1776. Number one, the Chauvin trial. Number two, COVID-19, which nobody seems to do anything. You got helter-skelter here. Texas doing one thing, Florida doing another thing, Biden's administration doing another thing, and the poor CDC director says, we're in trouble, and I'm scared. Yeah, Mrs. Walensky, you got a point there. Yes. But I don't see anybody of anywhere coming up and says, we got a testing time here, and we got to look at these things and iron them out one by one. President Biden, when he came into the office, Mr. Harvey, back in January 20th, 2021, first thing he did, knock off the Keystone Pipeline, and that cost a lot of jobs and sent a lot of people there. Is oil on the way out? Yes. Is oil bad? Yes. Oil was only supposed to be a stopgap measure, President Biden, 60 years ago, almost 90 years ago now. And you're still using it. And you got solar. Yeah, that's a stopgap measure too. Fusion, nuclear fusion is a stopgap measure. But I don't see anybody looking at hydrogen. I don't see anybody looking at polaric energy. I don't see anybody looking at fission or fusion energy as an antimatter. It's a dangerous thing to do, but if you do it right, you can have a long, successful society with antimatter. We have. Our ancestors did, and it cost them. They blew themselves up with antimatter. And that's because they were thinking the way you were. You have to change your way of thinking. Money is not number one. The people are. And until you get that thinking changed, you're going nowhere. Mr. Harvey knew this. That's why he started this back in 1960 with the testing time and all the rest of the programs that he did all the way up to 2009. The Letter to God in 65. The Blood, Sweat, and Tears program he did about the ancestors that went west. This is something you Americans don't understand. And tonight is your testing time. Like I said, you got the COVID-19. You got the Chauvin trial. You got your pigmentation issues, your faction issues. And you have a ballooning debt and how to save your national society and your identity as United States. How do you save that? I haven't seen a single person out there saying any one of these. You still look at things through political eyes. Politics should be disbanded and done with. Until you disband religion, until you disband politics, until you disband hatred, you are going nowhere. Bigotry, hatred, religion, and money. Those are the kind of things that are killing your society all over the planet. And look at the way you're handling your planet. It's just disaster. You keep this up in 20 years, the United States will be a wasteland. By 2066, it's almost a wasteland. I can tell you that because I've seen the U.S., or what's left of it, in 2066. And the Musha were saying, well, what happened here? It's a whole kind of wasteland, and we didn't do this. Yeah. The U.S. population in 2066 is less than 25 million. Out of 330 million today. Part of show, 155 million of those are the COVID-19. Yeah. Well, anyway, this is your favorite alien and Bubba sitting in for Mr. Paul Harvey this evening, telling you the testing time is today, and you guys are failing the test. Good day.